Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So a lot has happened yesterday and today. Namely, somebody tried to shoot Trump again. I don't know how many attempts this has been, at least 3 or 4 times. Allegedly, by the way, allegedly. Nobody succeeded as of yet. So it makes you think, is this all real? Or is this another attempt by Trump to boost his poll numbers? So some pictures have emerged of the shooter. And here he is showing off his IDF badge. He's wearing an IDF t-shirt hidden behind his hand, as you can see. So, so that tells you a lot of, well, it gives you a lot of answers who these people are. But they don't seem to be very good, guys. They don't seem to be very good. I mean, if you compare it to JFK, for example, there was at least 2 shooters, from what I can see from the evidence. And these were professionals and they didn't miss. But with Trump, basically you get these idiots who can't even do anything, can't even shoot straight, can't even literally shoot anything. This So this video that you're watching, this is a perfect example of Trump's shooters. You can see not very good with his aim. And there's loads of memes of these going around all over the internet. And there's another one um, with a with naked gun here. See another shooter. But jokes aside, guys, I mean, do you really believe all this stuff that's happening? I mean, this is another meme here. You can see. um, there's some images of. I think this woman is a reporter. And she's stealing some wine bottles by the looks of it, or alcohol. I mean, this is American society for you guys. In the middle of a shooting gallery, you have women stealing bottles of expensive alcohol. And you got this guy hiding behind his pregnant wife, man of the year. So is this what American society has turned into? You know, hiding behind his pregnant wife. And you can see this woman, forget about the shooting. This woman's got her priorities right. Finish the bottle first. Then you got this woman who is a Jewish lady, I might add. This is a Jewish lady, and she's some sort of influencer or something. And you can see she posts shooter at White House Correspondents' Dinner. Shooter is dead. Thank you, Secret Service. But look at her face. She's pouting with her duck lips. She's taking a selfie. She's showing off her face and her body. I mean, is this the kind of society we have in America, where in the middle of a shooting, a woman takes her time to take a selfie, posts duck lips, posts selfies and things? Is this the kind of society, men and women, that are in this White House having a dinner with the president? Is this the kind of people you want to be associated with? Is this American life, American culture? But this woman is Jewish, by the way, so that probably explains a lot. So back to being serious, guys. I mean, there's many reasons why somebody would fake this. So number one, like I said, Trump could be trying to he knows he's got really bad poll numbers. He could be trying to rally some support. And this worked before, so he might think it might work again. Number two, he might be looking for a bigger reason to attack Iran. He might come up and say, look, Iran tried to assassinate me, so I'm going to hit them even harder. Or he might want to, he might want to push his he might want to push his ballroom, uh, because he mentioned in his post conference that he needs the ballroom in the White House, and it's going to be secure and stuff. And obviously, the courts have said the ballroom is not legal. The works have to stop on it. So, so during his press conference, he said the ballroom is needed for security, and these things won't happen if the ballroom was there. So he could be pushing his own agenda. And you can see from this image, Trump was basically watching the show from behind the curtain. And there were some funny things going on. In the beginning, somebody came over with a note showing Trump, giving Trump some, instructions on the note. That's not something you would do when there's a shooter. If there's a shooter, the first reaction is to make sure the president is safe, make sure he's, under the table or move him out of, harm's way. That would be the first reaction. But why would he come and show, him a note, show Melania Trump a note, give them some instructions? It doesn't make sense. And then somebody came and saved JD Vance first before they saved Trump, which is also a bit strange. There was a lot of strange behavior going on, guys. It's not really normal. And how the hell did this former IDF guy end up coming to this dinner anyway? The White House is supposed to be the most secure thing in the planet after the Pentagon. So this all seems very, very staged, very dodgy to me. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's real? Do you think all these attempts are real? Do you believe that, or do you think it's all fake and Trump is just using these things to push his own agenda? It'll be interesting to know what your thoughts are, guys. So let's move on to the next story. So those of you who didn't believe that Israel is basically controlling the United States, this is on the White House website. You're welcome to check the White House website if you want. And on the White House website, it says Operation Epic Fury, international law. The United States is engaged in this conflict at the request in the collective self-defense of its Israeli ally. Can you see, guys? So this war is not because United States wants this war. It's because Israel wants this war. And this is why Israel controls America. Israel tells America what to do, who to attack, which war to have. They obviously pushed America into war with Iraq, in Libya, in Syria. The whole region is because of Israel. And the White House just admitted it, and you can see clearly the United States is engaged in this conflict at the request of Israel. And this is why I don't think this war will stop. I think Israel is using this time to rearm, restock, and when they are ready again, they will attack Iran again. And I think it's coming very, very soon. You can see with all the planes and all the logistics, they're moving around. It could happen sooner rather than later, but who knows, end of the day. So there's an image of an American KC-135. The engine blew up on the runway. This was in the United States. And there's not many of these planes active and available. The ones who were in the Middle East, most of them got destroyed by Iran. And the ones that are working, these are very old aircraft. These are we're talking 50 years old aircrafts. So you would see a lot of them will break down and not work. And especially if they've been used in the Middle East. If you've been using them in the Middle East, where there's a lot of sand and it's very, very hot. So the conditions are not very good for 50-year-old airplanes, with all the sand and all the The heat is definitely going to affect all these older aircraft, and that now you see some of these engines with some of these engines blowing up of these planes. So this war has become very, very disastrous for the United States. Not only have they lost a lot of equipment in the war, but the maintenance costs must be really high because all the planes that have been flying in the Middle East, they must have huge maintenance costs, for flying in the heat, flying with all the desert sand everywhere. And I've seen images of some of these airplanes with huge bullet holes on the side and huge damage on the side as well, and they've been patching it up with like tape. I'll see if I can find the image somewhere. I didn't. I did find it once in Twitter, but it's very hard to find these images and save it. But yeah, this war is going to be very, very heavily costly for the United States. Not just the ones equipment lost, but also going forward maintenance costs. And if they don't maintain these airplanes, and you can see what happens, the engine just blows up, during the runway or maybe in mid-flight. Who knows? So Trump is still attacking India. So this morning, Trump said on an interview, India lost 11 Indian Air Force jets against Pakistan last year. So it's almost daily he's attacking India. Yesterday he called India a hellhole, and today, and rightly so, by the way. I'm not arguing with Trump. If there was any truth that Trump has ever said in his time during presidency, it's this time when he called India a hellhole. That's only one of a few times that actually Trump spoke the truth. And here he's speaking the truth as well. He said that India lost 11 Indian Air Force jets. And he's just humiliating India one day after another. And what does India do? They were literally on their knees kissing Trump's backside. On their knees, guys, kissing Trump's backside. They do everything for United States. If United States tell them to stop buying Russian oil, they stop buying Russian oil. If they tell them to stop buying Iranian oil, they stop buying Iranian oil. Then they get hit with 50% tariffs, which is the highest tariffs in the world, higher than even China. And what does India do? Nothing. They don't retaliate. They don't say anything. They just take it like good little colonial rabbits. These guys have been colonized by the British for 200 years, so they are used to being humiliated on a daily basis. So they just take it. They don't do anything. They don't say anything. Unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. And they call themselves a superpower. Is this how superpower acts? You just kiss ass and just let the Americans bully you every single day. Yeah, very, very good superpower. Well done, India. So let's talk about Deepseek and Huawei. So Deepseek released its new version. I believe it's version 4. Um, and they released it basically open source. So everybody's can access the code. And it's not the main issue. The main issue, I mean, obviously, it's very, very cheap. And, you know, companies like OpenAI, ChatGPT have been spending hundreds of billions on their infrastructure, on their product. They have been charging companies a fortune. Then DeepSeek comes along and basically they open source their code and they make it free and available for everyone. And all this money, these OpenAI and Chat GPT and all these other AI companies spent, all these data centers and stuff, it just comes to nothing. There's going to be a big bubble bursting very soon. They call this another DeepSeek moment. And when the markets open up on Monday, tomorrow, you will see a huge crash happening. Because when DeepSeek released this, it was on a Friday, which didn't really affect the markets much. They did fall, but not as much. I think that they're going to have a heavy fall with a lot of AI companies losing a lot of money on Monday. So that's not the major story. The major story is DeepSeek has been using chips from Huawei instead of Nvidia. The earlier models for Deepseek were using Nvidia chips, and then there was some, then the Americans, what they did was, or Trump, what they did, they banned Deepseek from buying the latest chips from Nvidia. Even the second latest chips, they banned it from Deepseek from buying. And then China then decided not to kind of bother buying any more Nvidia chips, and then the Americans realized they're going to lose a lot of money because China is not buying any Nvidia chips because they keep sanctioning Chinese companies with it. And then what Trump did, he allowed the H200 Nvidia version, not the latest version, but quite an advanced version of its chips to be sold in the Chinese market. But the thing is, the Trump basically had a deal with Nvidia where if those chips get sold in China, then the American government gets a small kind of fee as well. It's like gangster style of you know doing business. But so far, no Chinese company has bought the H200. Zero. And the reason they haven't bought it is because there's a big rumor that these Nvidia H200 chips basically have a back door which Nvidia and the United States government have put um, on these chips, basically to able to do remote shutdowns and also spyware as well, and also able to hack the company. You can do a lot with these back doors. So there was a big rumor that was happening, and I believe there's been lots of evidence that this is the case. And also, Trump has been taking a cut from Nvidia H200 chips. So every chips that gets sold in China, Trump gets a cut. So it's like a gangster style diplomacy. So obviously China didn't buy it because they know there's a back door. But there's a bigger reason why. Because China doesn't want to rely on American chips. Because one day Trump can wake up and sanction those chips, or different chips or something else. It really depends on Trump's mood. So China does not want to rely on American chips, which can be sanctioned at any day. They rather spend that money on local chips. So what they've done is they bought, Nvidia. I mean, sorry, Huawei chips, and Huawei chips are probably not as powerful as the Nvidia chips, but still, this is their first iteration, and if they use that money to, to develop more internal chips, then within 1 year or even 2 years, you're going to have Huawei chips more powerful than Nvidia chips because every iteration, every version becomes more and more better, more powerful, and also these Huawei chips they also use less power as well, so it's still a lot cheaper compared to the Nvidia if you think about how much power the Nvidia one uses and things like that. So the best way is to develop your own chips. Use that money to develop your own chips because every Huawei chips that's sold, Huawei makes money, and Huawei puts that money into development, into research, and they come up with better chips. So it's a big cycle, and that cycle only works if you kind of develop locally. But if you use that money to buy Nvidia chips, you waste all that money, and then suddenly Trump wakes up and bans those chips, or there's a backdoor to those chips. You are not putting that money into Huawei's development. You're basically, reliant on American chips, and China does not want to be reliant on American, technology, because the last time China was dependent on American technology, look what happened to Huawei. Look what happened to China in Trump's first term. He basically sanctioned hundreds of companies. Even Biden did that as well. So China cannot rely on Western tech at all. So this is a big big slap in the face for this guy, um, the obviously the CEO of Nvidia. So because their business model is to sell these chips to China, and China buys or used to buy, a lot of Nvidia chips back in the day. Chinese tech companies used to buy a lot of Nvidia chips, but now hardly any Chinese companies buy any Nvidia chips because the latest Nvidia chips you're not allowed to sell to China, and even the second latest best chip you cannot sell to China. But the H200 is probably the third best, and even that has backdoors and restrictions. So it really isn't worth it, guys. It really isn't worth buying Nvidia chips. And Nvidia is one of the largest American tech companies in the world, and they have a huge bubble. A lot of people buy Nvidia stocks. But if they cannot sell to the Chinese market, and the Chinese market is huge, you're going to see Nvidia stocks fall like a house of cards, and they're going to fall really, really big because Nvidia is a huge bubble. And when you cannot sell to your biggest market, which is China, then that bubble's going to burst eventually because if Chinese chips start taking over, and eventually if Huawei chips become better and better with each version, and eventually if they become better than the Nvidia chips, then it's over for Nvidia. Companies around the world will rather buy Chinese chips, especially countries from the global south. And you can see with the way America is at the moment, they're making so many enemies around the world. Trump is making so many enemies, including his allies. So all his allies are thinking, let's not, put all of our eggs in one basket. Let's buy products from China. Let's buy products from other parts of the world because we don't want to be reliant on America because America can put tariffs one day, sanctions one day. So you see that's why you see a lot of countries around the world buying, Chinese products, Chinese chips. During the first term when Trump puts all these restrictions on China, China was not selling a single chip to the world because they didn't really have a chip making sector. And SMIC was, at the time, SMIC was kind of making some chips, but it wasn't like they are doing right now with huge productions. Back then, it was a very small amount for the local market. But now, SMIC, they've got huge factories churning out, chip after chip, and these chips are being used by Huawei and other major companies. But back then, China really didn't really have much of a chip sector. And Trump's first term, when he started putting all these sanctions on China, really kick-started China's chip making industry. They started making the machines, the chips, and now from buying 600 billion worth of chips before Trump's first term, that's how much China was buying from America. Now China is selling up to $300 billion worth of chips to the outside world because Chinese chips are still cheaper. They might not be as powerful as the West, but they're still much cheaper compared to the West. And also, they use less energy as well. Um, they, they're good for the job that you need because you don't really need high-end chips all the time. Things like EV cars and electronic products and fridges and TVs. They don't really need the latest chips. You just need a working chip. Uh, and these low-end working chips are cheaper in China, cheaper to make. So a lot of countries rather buy them from China rather than going to America, where it comes with lots of restrictions and all these rules and regulations and all this. And plus, Trump can sanction you any day. So a lot of companies now are just starting to buy Chinese chips, and this is why China's exports are going up every single year for chips. So Trump started this, by the way, like his exactly like the way he started the Hormuz Strait. Hormuz Strait was free. All the ships using it, they didn't have to pay any tolls. But because of Trump, now they have to pay tolls. And now Trump is going to make Iran great again. So exactly the first term when Trump's first term, he attacked China, and China was forced to have a chip sector, and they really, really advanced their chip sector. And because of that, you know, because of Trump's actions, China's chip sector is one of the best in the world now, and they're soon going to overtake American chips. And it's only a matter of time because it's only a matter of time before China develop its own EUV machines, makes its own high-end chips, and uh, and then it's game over. Game over for TSMC in the Taiwanese island. Game over for Intel. Game over for Samsung and many of these high-end Western companies who make chips. It's going to be absolutely game over. Anyway, guys, that's all for today. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you soon. Take care.